So today I really wanted to focus on shame as it plays a part into addiction on every side. So shame plays a part a little differently than what we were used to. So growing up, we've always used kind of a form of shame to get people to do what we want them to do. And you know what? It's effective. It really is. So when our parents are raising us, oftentimes you do something wrong, there's a punishment, there's some types of no, you can't do that. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. Our religions oftentimes use shame as a form of control to get us to do what we want. And that's not like, that's just the way it is. It's not a judgment. It just is. And shame is very effective when it comes to getting other people to do what we want them to do, especially for people that are not on drugs. Now, when people are on drugs, because addiction or alcohol, when people are on drugs and addiction plays a little bit differently, it has a different set of rules. Using shame as a form of manipulation to try to get them to do what we want them to do actually doesn't work. If I really thought that shame was something that works to get them to wake up, to get them to see the light and force them into wanting to get help for themselves, if shame was the way that worked, we would probably have a lot fewer people on drugs or drinking a lot of alcohol, because there's a lot of people that try to use this as a form of getting them to do what they want them to do, which is go get help, because that's what they really need. So we want to shame them into submission. Unfortunately, because of the way that addiction operates and its set of rules, and I always equate addiction kind of like being in a foreign country. It has its own set of rules. It has its own language. It has its own ways of being, the social contracts, all of that stuff. So what we operate on the outside in the kind of normal society, things don't always operate the same way when someone is in their addiction. They see, hear the world very differently. So when we try to shame them into submission, what ends up happening is they translate it into their brain as going deeper into the darkness, because there's so much. They are in a deep darkness right now. And anything that brings more darkness, they just feed on it. And shame is something that people really feed on in their addiction. They're already doing things that they feel horrible about. They just don't know that they can stop. They don't honestly think that they're going to be around long enough to have to deal with the consequences anyway. So the more we shame, the more we kind of are telling them that we're confirming their altered belief system. So they already have a belief system that is warped and is incorrect. And they're already feeling not good enough. They already feel like they don't belong in this world. Many times they just don't really want to do anything about it, but they are sitting around kind of waiting a little bit to die so they don't have to deal with the darkness anymore. And as long as the shame is the method that we try to control them with, it only sends them deeper down that belief system. So when, let's say, for example, and this is my favorite one to use because this is something that we do a lot, is they have kids. They're not taking care of their kids. They're leaving their kids behind. They're letting other people take care of them. Now, this is not an okay way of being, right? We know that. We know that this is unacceptable behavior. To them, we we think that they are choosing drugs over their kids when someone else is taking care of their kids. That's the way we see things. That's the way we see our reality, is that they are choosing drugs over their kids. But the reality, in the warped sense of addiction, in the warped sense of their belief system, in the warped sense of the way they process information, which is not the same way, is allowing someone else to take care of their kids, is actually choosing their kids over the drugs, because they know, or they think that they know, that they can't do any better anyway. That they are not in the right state of mind to take care of their kids, and their kids would probably be better off with someone else. That's the warped sense of reality that addiction plays under. And you cannot agree, you cannot like it, you cannot accept it, you can feel like it's wrong, and you are entitled to all that. You can be mad at it, you're entitled to all that. But the fact remains that in their mind, they actually think that their kids are better off with someone else. And the more that we shame them into trying to submit to going to get help, the more that they believe that their kids are better off. And that's just the way that addiction really kind of is. There's a warped sense of reality that happens. We don't have to understand it. It just is. I understand it a little bit better because I've been there. So I kind of just wanted to bring that to light, because I see more and more as this is the form of kind of trying to control their behavior or shame them into wanting to get help, and it doesn't work. So what do you do instead? First of all, the first thing that we have to understand is that they have to choose to get out of the darkness on their own. There is nothing that we can do. We can shame them, we can praise them, we can do all other sorts of forms of positive, negative reinforcement. It is irrelevant to what we do. It's all up to them. It's all their decision. But we don't have to sit here and play a part in trying to control their behavior, because we can't anyway. And the more that we try to control it, the more we make it about us. And their addiction is not about us. Their addiction is about them. So, and I say us as in the people on the outside that is not using drugs, that is not in that warped sense of reality. We can see a little bit more clearly what's going on. They can't, right? So I just wanted to kind of bring this to light in terms of the more we try to control them, and the more that we try to use positive, negative reinforcement, the more that we are actually making their addiction about us and not about them. There are certain things that can oftentimes be helpful. They do really need to know that someone is there for them. But that does not mean that we have to support them and enable them in such a way that says that we are condoning their behavior. But there's a difference between condoning their behavior and then accepting their behavior and then shaming their behavior. We don't have to shame their behavior, even though they're doing really bad things. But shaming means that we're kind of taking it personally and making it about us when it's not. They're going to have to deal with the consequences of their behavior. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with their own shame. And believe me, they have their shame. I know to you, it may not seem like they have their shame, but they do. They just have a different way of showing it. And usually it's not until they get into some sort of recovery or rehab when all that stuff starts coming up to them, then they have to process it. I mean, imagine all the shame you've ever had to deal with in your life. You tucked it away for a little while, and now it's all coming to the surface. Everything you've ever done. This is why recovery can sometimes be messy. It can sometimes be chaotic. It can sometimes be very emotional. You know, because it's a messy process. Addiction is just a messy process. Life is a messy process, you know, and one of the things that I just really wanted to present today was that shaming someone is actually feeding into their faulty belief system as it is. It only continues to tell them they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they don't belong here, maybe the world would be better off without them. All of that stuff that they kind of say, because when we shame them, that's what they believe, is they don't belong here anyway. And they're so close to death that they'd rather just tip the scales in that direction. But luckily, for many of them, for many of the addicts that are using drugs right now, they don't really want to die, but they think maybe it would be easier. And so I just wanted to kind of say that so that we can start really presenting a little bit more of a loving, compassionate, while also detaching and still caring, but detaching and not making it about us, and letting them know that, you know, we're still here for them. We love them no matter what they do. We're not going to condone behaviors. We're not going to allow certain behaviors into our lives, but they're going to have to deal with their own stuff. And we are here for them when they decide to do something different, and that they can do something different. And I think that's the thing that they really need to believe the most, is that they can do something different. They don't have to live this life, you know, and we believe in them enough to say, you can do this. We have faith in you. We believe in you that you are smart enough and capable enough to get the help and to push through and deal with the things that you got to deal with and get to the other side and start healing and being a better person. Because that's what they need to hear. They need to hear that they are smart. They need to hear that they are capable, and they need to hear that they're going to have to figure their shit out, basically. Anyway, if this was helpful and you think someone else needs to hear this, I would love for you to share this. I think this will really help a lot of people in understanding why that them kind of using shame as that form of manipulation. And manipulation is not necessarily bad. I'm not saying that manipulation has to have a negative connotation. It does not have to have a negative connotation. And I know we hate that word manipulation because we've been so manipulated and fed into our own like guilts and shames and stuff that word has a lot of meaning and it's powerful. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but we all kind of fall into manipulative patterns in some ways, sometimes for the positive and sometimes for not the positive. So again, if you really think that this was helpful, or you think someone else needs to hear this, I would love for you to share this. And you can also find more information on me. I have a website. It's Maneely Consulting. Oh, wrong side. ManeelyConsulting.com. MANEELY consulting.com. If you want to hear more, if you want to learn more, I have blogs, I have, a list, I have all the fun stuff. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Hope this was helpful, and let me know what you think.